So today's video, I'm going to be talking about why I support the TFL and National Rail strikes. Network Rail and Transport for London workers are currently on strike, and this has taken place since the 21st of June, and it will go through until the 26th of June. RMT is calling for a pay rise of at least 7%, but the union said employers have only offered 2%. So I really wanted to bring that in this because I think so often strikers are presented as, why didn't you reach a resolution, or like difficult, not able to negotiate with. But it's actually the other way around. You also have how funds have been misused within transport. The rail companies, for example, have made 500 million in terms of profits during the pandemic. But staff, on the other hand, are experiencing cuts to their wages. And people act like the pandemic is over. But we have to keep in mind the risk to their health working in that sector how it has impacted them. You also have the instance of which Congolese transport worker aged 47 died in 2020 with coronavirus as she was coughed on by a passenger that was harassing her. And she died and passed away. This is the environment that TFL and railway strikers have been working in. All of that, it's not really being taken into consideration at all. It's just like, get on with it. You're not thankful to have a job? Why are you complaining? That is the atmosphere that I'm seeing right now. And it's just this kind of competitive environment of, you're complaining? What are you complaining for? When we all have a right, like working people all have a right to feel like, what the hell is this? Like, we should be being paid more. You can't pay your bills with these wages that a lot of us have. You can't move out of your parents' house. There's a housing crisis. We also are in a mental health crisis. Like, who is your enemy in this situation? Is it people who want to strike for a better wage so that they can survive and they don't have to rely on food banks? And you hear these stories about parents not eating so that their kids can eat. That is wrong, okay? We should be thinking about that. The Secretary of State for Transport, Grant Sharps, this is what he said in House of Commons, right? So he said, the government would no longer tolerate rail unions using their right to strike without any regard for how the rights of others are disrupted. So you see how they're trying to spin it. And then they're also talking about how they're considering, or they're expected to introduce a legislation where employers would be able to replace striking workers with agency staff. Like, they're not even hiding their anti-strike ways. It's very much just like, oh, you're struggling, are you? Well, we need people at the bottom for us to be at the top. Lastly, the huge elephant in the room when it comes to strikes, when it comes to the TFL and National Rail strikes, is how gender, sexuality, race, gender identity, all of those aspects and disability overlap in who's more likely to be in a position that they are overworked and underpaid. A little while ago, I mentioned how the government is going to put forward legislation where they replace those that strike with agency staff. Who are more likely to be agency staff? Who are more likely to be in those precarious positions? It cannot just be explored as a class issue. All of these aspects need to be included in your conversations for supporting the strike, because some of us are more likely to experience poverty than others. I think also the violence and bullying that those in this sector face link to those factors as well. And historically, when, if we all just did a quick Google search about who built the transport sector, it's Black and brown folk that overwhelmingly represent transport in the past and today.